A millionaire walks into a restaurant one night expecting nothing more than a quiet business dinner. But across the room, he spots his black ex-wife, the woman he thought was gone from his life forever. And sitting beside her are two little girls who look exactly alike twins. Their laughter carries across the tables, and in that instant, his perfect empire begins to crack. Because those children don't just resemble him, they hold the biggest secret he's ever kept hidden. This is the story of how one chance encounter forced a man to choose between the fortune he built and the family he never knew he had. Sometimes life gives us everything we think we want: money, success, power. But then, out of nowhere, it throws us face to face with what we didn't even realize we needed. Today's story is about a man who thought he had it all, until one evening at a restaurant turned his entire world upside down. What he saw that night didn't just shock him, it forced him to confront a secret that had been hidden for years, and it changed his life forever. Darius Coleman was 46 years old, and from the outside, he seemed untouchable. He had climbed from nothing to build an empire in real estate, turning struggling neighborhoods into thriving developments. His name was on skyscrapers, his face appeared in glossy magazines, and Forbes called him one of the most eligible bachelors in the country. His penthouse overlooked the city skyline, and his days were packed with meetings, interviews, and high-profile dinners. But for all the noise of success, his nights were always quiet. No family at home, no laughter in the halls, just the endless buzz of his phone and the empty view of a city that worshipped him, but didn't know him. On one of those nights, as he was preparing to head out for yet another business dinner, his assistant, Clara, handed him a letter. "This came from Carter and Myers Law," she said. The name froze him. He hadn't heard it in years, but he knew immediately who it was tied to: his ex-wife, Alana Carter. Alana had been the love of his life back when they were both young, both hungry, both dreaming about a future built together. She had supported him in the early years when he was broke and stubborn, when every dollar mattered and every setback hurt. She had been there with late-night cups of coffee, small apartments filled with laughter, and a hope that love could survive anything. But eventually, his ambition began to crowd everything else out. Arguments replaced laughter, and the woman who had once been his entire world had left in tears, saying she couldn't compete with his obsession for success. That was 6 years ago. The letter stayed on his desk unopened as he left for dinner. He told himself he would deal with it later. But that night, at an exclusive restaurant glittering with chandeliers and polished marble, the past found him before he even had the chance. Sitting just a few tables away was Alana. She looked different, but also the same. Her hair shorter, her style more mature, but her smile unchanged. A smile he once thought he'd see every morning for the rest of his life. She wasn't alone. Around her table sat 3 children, their laughter filling the air. Darius froze. Something about them struck him in an instant. The boy had his eyes. One of the girls tilted her head in the exact way he always did when he was deep in thought. His chest tightened. These weren't just any kids. They looked like him. He excused himself from the board members at his table, and before he knew it, he was standing in front of Alana's. Her smile faded, replaced with guarded calm. "Darius," she said softly. Not angry, not happy, just careful. The children looked up with curiosity. One of the girls whispered, "Mommy, who's that?" Alana's reply cut deep. "Just someone I used to know." But Darius couldn't hold back. "Are they mine?" Her eyes hardened. "They're mine." The room spun. He hadn't known. She told him she tried, called, wrote, reached out, but his world back then was sealed shut. His old assistant had blocked her calls, returned her letters, convinced that he didn't want to be disturbed. And he had been too busy, too proud, to wonder what he was missing. The truth landed like a blow. He had 3 children, identical twin girls, and a boy that he had never met. 5 years of birthdays, first steps, first words, gone. Alana finally slipped him a business card. Call me tomorrow. Not for me. That ship has sailed. But for them, if you're serious, if you're ready to be someone other than the man who abandoned us. That night, Darius couldn't sleep. The echoes of their laughter haunted him, both beautiful and painful. For the first time in years, the billions he'd built around himself felt worthless compared to the family he didn't know. The next day, he confronted Clara, his assistant. 5 years ago, did she try to reach me? Her silence told him everything. Eventually, she admitted the truth. His old gatekeeper had blocked every attempt, and Darius had let it happen by burying himself in his empire. So when he walked into Alana's office that afternoon, it wasn't as a billionaire, but as a man desperate for another chance. She didn't make it easy. She pulled out photo albums' first steps, first drawings, school reports, and every page made his chest ache. They've asked about their father, she admitted. I told them their dad was someone I once loved, but who had to go away. I want to make it right, Darius whispered. But Alana was firm. You can't just show up with money and think that fixes everything. They need consistency. They need you to show up, not just once, but every day. Are you capable of that? For the first time in his life, he turned his phone off completely. And that was the beginning. The following week felt like a test Darius couldn't afford to fail. He started small, learning about his children from a distance. Anonymous gifts showed up at their school new art supplies for Mia's class, a science kit for Sophie's after-school group, sports gear for the playground where James loved to run. The children never knew who sent them, but their mother did. You've made them so happy, Alana said during one of their cautious coffee meetings. Her tone carried both appreciation and doubt. But gifts are easy. Showing up, that's harder. Darius leaned forward. Then let me show up. Let me meet them properly. She hesitated, then pulled out folders, medical reports, school records, notes scribbled in her neat handwriting. If you're serious, you need to know everything. Sophie has allergies. Maya's asthma acts up in winter. James is terrified of thunderstorms. Their lives don't revolve around business schedules, Darius. They need consistency, not someone who disappears when the next deal lands on the table. He held those folders as if they were treasure maps. That night, instead of running numbers, he read every word. He ordered pizza instead of catered meals. He scribbled notes. Soccer gear in James's size, sketchbooks for Mia, science books for Sophie. Not to send anonymously this time, but to have ready just in case they ever came to visit their father. When the day finally came, it wasn't a gala or a boardroom. It was a Saturday at the local park. Alana arrived with the children in bright raincoats, their laughter ringing as they raced to the playground. Darius stood frozen, watching them climb the slides and pump their legs on the swings. Are you ready? Alana asked quietly. No, he admitted, but I don't want to wait another minute. She called the kids over. There's someone I want you to meet. They bounded over, cheeks flushed, eyes wide. Up close, the resemblance was undeniable. Mia had her mother's dimples, Sophie bore his freckle, James had his father's serious gaze. This is Darius, Alana began, her voice steady. Has your father? The children stared. James spoke first. You're our daddy? Darius knelt until he was eye level. Yes. I know I haven't been here, and I'm so sorry. But I want to be here now. If you'll let me. Sophie tilted her head. Where were you? He swallowed hard. Honesty was all he had. I was foolish. I thought success mattered more than anything. But I forgot what really matters, family. You. There aren't any other kids. It's just you three. And you're everything I could ever want. Silence stretched, broken only by the sound of children playing in the distance. Then Mia whispered softly, Your eyes are sad. It shattered him. Tears he had held back for years spilled freely. They're sad because I missed so much, but they're happy now because I get to meet you. For a moment, hope flickered, but then a sharp voice cut across the playground. Christopher Darius Coleman, a woman snapped. His mother, Eleanor Coleman, was striding toward them in heels that sank into the gravel, his father Richard trailing behind her. They looked completely out of place among the Saturday crowd of strollers and soccer moms. These are our grandchildren? Eleanor demanded, eyes flashing. How dare she keep them from us? We'll sue for custody. The children shrank back against their mother, alarmed. Darius stepped in front of them. His voice dropped low, hard. You will not talk to her that way. Alana has been their protector, their mother, their everything. She's raised them perfectly without me, without you. If anyone should be angry, it's them. Eleanor sneered. She hid them from us. No, Darius shot back. You all were too busy caring about reputation and control. You wanted a perfect son who could run the company, not a man with a family. Well, I'm telling you now, these kids are mine, and I will protect them. You'll either respect that, or you won't be part of their lives. The triplets clung to their mother's side, but slowly, cautiously, James reached out and slipped his small hand into his father's. Sophie followed, her voice tiny but clear. Can we call you Daddy? Tears blurred Darius's vision. He looked to Alana, who gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. I'd love that, he whispered, but only if you want to. Mia tilted her head again, the same way he always did, and said, I want to know everything about you. Their mother tried to keep her expression guarded, but there was no hiding the hint of softness in her eyes. Even Eleanor, the woman made of iron, faltered as she saw the children clustered around her son, their father. They have your eyes, she murmured, softer this time. They have more than that, Alana said quietly. They have his spirit, his kindness, everything good about him before the business world swallowed him whole. And maybe now they'll finally have their father too. Rain began to fall, gentle and cool. Nobody moved. The family stood together 3 generations, divided by years of choices and regrets, but tied now by something undeniable. For the first time, Darius felt what true wealth meant. It wasn't in the towers with his name on them. It was here, in 3 small hands clutching his, and in the woman who had once loved him enough to believe he could be better. But while his heart swelled, trouble was already brewing elsewhere. His company's boardroom was restless. Rivals were circling, whispering about leadership changes. A man named Victor Garrick, a cunning investor with a talent for exploiting weakness, was moving fast. Rumors swirled that Darius had been distracted, that his personal life was about to implode into scandal. And soon, those whispers would come crashing against everything Darius had just begun to rebuild. After that day in the park, Darius's life began to split into 2 parallel battles. On one side, he was learning how to be a father, awkwardly at first, but with growing confidence. He showed up for soccer practice, clapped through Sophie's endless science experiments, and carried sketchbooks everywhere in case Mia wanted to draw. Each small moment became a treasure, a reminder of all he had missed but was determined to reclaim. On the other side, A storm was gathering around his empire. The Coleman Group, his life's work, was under attack. Victor Garrick, a shareholder who had been quietly amassing influence, pushed for an emergency vote to remove Darius as CEO. He used every weapon at his disposal: the recent leaks of confidential data, the dip in stock prices, and whispers of Darius's personal distractions. In the world of high finance, showing up at a school play could be painted as a liability, not a strength. Darius fought back with everything he had. He knew Garrick wasn't acting alone. Someone from inside was feeding him information to steal, personal information about Alana and the children. The idea that a traitor close to him had betrayed his most fragile secret ignited a fury he hadn't felt in years. Then came the uninvited visitor. One evening, while Alana and the twins were settling into the safe house Darius had arranged for their protection, an attorney named Lauren Matthews appeared at the gates. She claimed to represent a client who knew the truth. "There's someone else behind Garrick," she told Alana. "Someone closer than you realize. Someone code-named Hera." The warning rattled Alana to her core. She kept it from the children, but when Darius returned later that night, she told him everything. Suspicion weighed heavy on him, but desperation made him take the risk. At 11 p.m., in a discreet suite at the Orchid Hotel, Darius met Lauren's clienta whistleblower named Tom Ridley, once a consultant for Garrick. Pale and nervous, Tom handed over a USB drive. On it were records, emails, financial transfers, and coded messages. They showed Garrick hadn't been working alone. Hera, a mole within Darius's own circle, had been funneling secrets to undermine him. And worse, they had warned Garrick about Alana and the children, planning to use their existence as a final blow. Darius left that hotel determined. He would find Hera, no matter the cost. Through the night, his team worked to decrypt the files. Slowly, a name emerged from behind layers of code. Rachel Hayes. Rachel wasn't a stranger. She was his trusted legal counsel, a woman who had once been welcomed at his family dinners, who had clinked glasses at charity galas, who had stood by his side during high-profile negotiations. All the while, she had been feeding Garrick the ammunition to bring him down. The betrayal burned. The next morning, in a boardroom packed with tension, Darius walked in with the evidence. Garrick was already there, confident, his supporters whispering in his ear. And next to him stood Rachel, calm and composed, as if nothing had happened. Darius dropped the stack of documents on the table. "You want to talk about distractions? Let's talk about sabotage. Garrick, here are your payments to shell companies, timed exactly with our leaks. And Rachel." He turned, voice like steel. "You can drop the act. You're Hera." Gasps echoed. Rachel's face stayed composed, but her eyes narrowed. "This is absurd," she snapped. Those files could be fabricated, but the board members had already begun reading. Transfers, emails, messages that only an insider could have written. Garrick tried to salvage his position, but Rachel lashed out, turning on him. "Don't you dare pin this all on me. You wanted him gone just as much as I did." The room descended into chaos. Board members shouted over one another, lawyers scrambled, and security was called. By the time the dust settled, Garrick was finished. Rachel was exposed, and Darius still sat at the head of the table, not just as a CEO, but as a man who had survived betrayal from within his own walls. When he finally walked out of the skyscraper that afternoon, the air felt lighter. The city hummed as it always did, but for the first time, he didn't feel chained to it. He wasn't rushing back to close another deal. He was rushing home. At the safe house, Alana stood on the porch. The twins were in the yard, kicking a ball back and forth, their laughter cutting through the silence of security guards and high fences. When Darius stepped out of the car, they stopped, then ran. "Daddy's back!" James shouted. Darius dropped to his knees, scooping them into his arms. The weight of them, the warmth, the realness was worth more than any victory on Wall Street. Alana approached slowly. She had been cautious for weeks, never letting her guard down completely. But when she saw him holding their children, smiling in a way she hadn't seen in years, something inside her softened. "It's over," he said, his voice rough. Garrick's done. Rachel's exposed. No more threats. For a moment, she just looked at him, searching his face the way she once did when they were young. Then she nodded. "Good. Now let's see if you can win the harder battle." He knew what she meant. The boardroom fight was behind him. But the real test was ahead, proving, day after day, that he could be the father his children deserved. That evening, as the sun dipped and the safe house glowed in golden light, Darius sat on the grass with Mia, Sophie, and James. They told him about school, about favorite colors, about silly dreams of building castles or flying to space. Alana watched from the porch, her arms crossed, but for the first time there was a hint of a smile tugging at her lips. Darius Coleman had been a millionaire, a mogul, a man whose name carried power. But here, surrounded by 3 little voices calling him daddy, he finally understood what it meant to be rich. And this time, he wasn't going to lose it.